Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining the Ombuds office for today's conversation on non-defensive communication. What's in a question? And this is part of our office's Small Bites, Big Impact Lunch and Learn series. Some of you may have been to some of our other presentations. I am Liz Hill. I am the Associate Director here at the Ombuds office at the University of Colorado Boulder, and I will be leading today's presentation. So before we get started, I just want to quickly go over some logistics. I'm guessing some of you have heard this before, so just hang tight. You are muted, and we ask that you kindly keep your video off, and this helps reduce distractions. I may be using some polls and asking questions throughout today's presentation, so if you haven't already, now is a good time to go to the bottom of your Zoom toolbar there, the bottom of your screen, and open up your chat box. We'll be using that chat box to allow you to ask questions and also give you an opportunity to respond to questions that I may ask. And of course, as I'm sure you all know by now, using Zoom every day, that your name does appear, unless it's a private chat, your name does appear in the chat box. So just keep that in mind. And while I am presenting, Kerry McLean, our program administrator, will be behind the scenes, so to speak, fielding non-substantive questions and parking any substantive questions for when we do get to the Q&A, which we will have some time at the end for questions and answers. If anyone has a specific situation that they want to talk to us about, the best thing to do is to go ahead and contact the Ombuds office to schedule a consultation. And that is true if it's a situation you want to think through or talk through, as well as if you just don't feel comfortable asking a question or sharing information in the chat, we're happy to schedule a private consultation. We do aim to keep these lunch and learns, that you probably know, to 30 minutes. And that's in an effort to get you back to your day, and just give you some skills, some bite-sized information that you can take with you. We do record these conversations so that we can reach as many people as possible, in particular those who could not join us today at this time. Later today, or I guess maybe the next day or two, I should say, I will send out, and I'll repeat this again, but I will send out a follow-up email, which will include links to the resources I'm going to be mentioning today throughout the presentation, things that I reference. And Kerry will be including those links in the chat box, but I just don't want people to feel like you have to open it or copy it. I will be sending out an email to all registrants with those links. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today's conversation, like I said, is non-defensive questions. And so I'm going to be sharing some powerful insights from an author named Sharon Strand Ellison. And I'm going to be taking information from her book titled Taking the War Out of Our Words: The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication. And thank you, Kerry. Kerry went ahead and put that link in the chat. And like I said, I'll be emailing that to you as well. But in her book, Ellison asserts that communication in the United States of America is combative. Our everyday conversations have turned into what she deems power struggles. And she defines this as a situation in which two or more people or groups compete for control in a particular sphere. And this typically results in one of 6 defensive reactions. So we'll go ahead and look at those now. And I am going to note that I'm getting some signals from my headset. So please, someone let me know if you can't hear me, so we can stop and switch audio. But while we don't have time today to dive into these 6 defensive reactions too deeply, I do want to at least present them to you and give them as food for thought, things that you can consider as we discuss the non-defensive questions. So the first one is called surrender betrayal. And this is when people give in and take responsibility for a situation that they were not directly responsible for. They're betraying themselves. The second one she deems surrender sabotage. And this is when we fake our sorrow. And through our deeds, we then demonstrate how bitter and resentful we really are. Many of you may be familiar with the concept of passive aggressive behavior. So that would be an example of surrender sabotage. The third is withdrawal escape. And this is simply avoiding, right? You flee, you leave the situation. The next is withdrawal and trap. And this is avoiding in a way that forces our opponent to then do something inappropriate, something that we can then use to justify our discontent or our behavior, or to kind of corroborate our belief or what we've been saying about this person. The next is attack justify. And this is rationalizing and making excuses for what has happened. And then the final one is attack blame. And this is holding back and using our resources to attack and judge the other person or persons. So these are the 6 defensive reactions. And the good news is, the silver lining here, is that we can shift this. Ellison offers conversation tools to diminish the power struggle, including what we're going to be talking about, non-defensive questions, which help unlock information, disarm defensiveness, and interrupt this power struggle, at the same time increasing our own self-awareness. The reality is that most of us simply do not ask enough questions. Have you ever met a toddler? They love the why questions, right? Why did he do that? Why is she sad? Why can't I do X? Why is the sky blue? And that's because human beings were born curious. But then what happens is many of us are taught that asking too many questions is rude or invasive. So now's the time we want to switch that. We want to retrain our brains and recognize the value of non defensive communications to improve our communication. So, the value of asking non defensive questions is they help do a few things. They help us clarify assumptions, they help us gather information, they help us establish separateness, and they help us increase accountability. And we will discuss each of these separately in just a few moments. But first, it's important to understand the 4 elements of non defensive questions. They're curious, they're open, they're neutral, and they're inviting. And so, what does all that mean? Innocently curious, right? That means asking purely for discovery. You do not have a hidden agenda. Also, open, making ourselves vulnerable to discovering the actual answer. And the reality, of course, is that this might not be what we want to hear. It might be hard to hear, but truly being open and preparing ourselves for that if we do hear something that might be hard to hear. Third is neutral, removing feelings to deliver the question in a neutral tone. And this, believe it or not, is contrary to what most of us have been taught, right? Because it requires coming down in tone at the end of the question rather than going up in tone, which is how we've been taught to speak. So it does require a little bit of conscious effort to make sure we're delivering or asking the question in that neutral tone. It's more like making a statement. And then the final is inviting. We're using, again, tone, because if you haven't figured out, delivery is so important. We're using a gentle tone to create safety and encourage an honest response. So now that we understood the elements of non-defensive questions, let's take a look at the value, and we'll look at these one by one. So as I mentioned, the first one is clarifying assumptions. So take a look at this slide. You can see some of the examples of what happens when we don't ask questions versus the benefits of asking questions, what it allows us to do. Because here's what happens. When we make assumptions, we're actually preventing ourselves from asking questions. And the reason is because we believe we know what they mean, or we already have the information, or we already have the answer. So how many times has this backfired? Think about that. And I'm going to ask you to think about that right now. How many times have you been in a situation where you acted or reacted upon an assumption because you thought you knew, only to find out maybe you didn't? So I'm going to go ahead and share a poll now. Take a moment, think about this, and then I'll go ahead and I'll share the results. But there's 26 of you, so take a look at this. I'll read the question for those of you who may be just listening in. Have you ever forged ahead with your initial reaction based on what you assumed another person meant, only to later realize you acted upon or reacted to an assumption based on your own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, which unfortunately you ultimately realized were not correct? Okay, so I see about oh, good. Almost 80% of you have voted. I'll give you a few more seconds here. And an overwhelming yes. So I think what I'm saying sounds like is resonating with the people on today's call or on today's video. So good. Thank you for that. All right. We'll leave it there. We got 88%, 23 out of 26 of you, and overwhelming 100% yes. So I'll go ahead and share those results real quick, so you can see them. Okay. So thank you for doing that. I think it's insightful just to see, that we're human, right? It's not right or wrong. We're human, and this is what we do. So the more conscious we are about it, the more we can start to shift these behaviors. Okay. So moving ahead here, then, you've had a chance to look at that. Let's look at a scenario. Okay, I'll go ahead. You can read it, but I'll go ahead and read it out loud, especially for those who maybe can't see it. A supervisor sits down to have a meeting with their employees. They've fallen short of a goal. The supervisor assumes the employees are lazy and aren't working hard enough. He's very upset and berates them for missing the goal. In reality, the employees have too many projects and they have received no guidance, regarding which projects are the priority. So, had the supervisor asked questions to better understand why the employees missed the deadline, they could surface the underlying issues and address them rather than place blame. um, just go ahead and in the chat, share. I mean, does this resonate with you? Yes, no, you're not sure. I'd love to kind of hear as I shared that scenario how that lands. Yeah, I see a couple of yups coming in. So thank you. Yes. And again, we're not judging, we're not blaming. We're human, and this is what we do. Okay? So again, it's really just being more conscious of it and more aware of it. And when we start to make those assumptions and tell ourselves those stories, to stop ourselves and just pause for a minute and think about what facts or information do I have to support this conclusion I'm coming to? Do I need more information? And that brings us to our next one. So thank you for those who put some comments in the chat. I appreciate that. So the second one is doing exactly that, using these non-defensive questions to gather information. It's no secret that many of us don't actually say what we mean, and this creates serious misunderstandings. Consider a time, and I think we can all resonate with this one. Consider a time when you ask a friend or family member if they were upset, only to receive a simple nope, followed by sulking and other behaviors that sent a very different message. Maybe perhaps you accepted it and moved on, or perhaps you continued coaxing them to tell you what was wrong, prying at it. So, what if you flip the script? What if you use the bits of information you had and asked something like, are you saying you are not upset because you truly believe that nothing is wrong? Or because for some reason you don't want to talk about it? So, asking a non defensive question in this way disarms the other person and allows them, gives them a little bit more freedom and opportunity to answer freely and honestly. Okay. The third one I mentioned is establishing separateness. And this means, not getting caught up in our own defensiveness. This is where kind of that self-awareness piece comes in. So instead of asking a question that shifts the conversation from a defensive response to asking a question, we're asking a question, to explore where the other person is coming from. So for example, if someone renders an opinion as a statement, such as, don't worry, you wouldn't like that anyway. Rather than get kind of upset and accusatory, you could simply turn it and ask your own question. You could ask, are you stating that as your opinion or are you stating that as a fact? A sincere question often has the effect of equalizing the conversation, even if there is a power differential. So it allows us to really separate ourselves from someone else's judgment. It also, at the same time, simultaneously, gets them to stop and to think and to potentially rethink the statement they've made, which allows you an opportunity to express a different perspective without defensiveness. Okay. So, regardless whether they do rethink and kind of think about, what they've said or how they've said it, you separate yourself from that judgment and you can walk away with your confidence and your self-esteem intact. All right. And then finally, we have non-defensive questions allow us an opportunity to increase accountability. So how do they do that? Well, they allow us to ask direct questions in a non-threatening way. And this, again, also, I should say, allows the other person to take away or to take more responsibility, I should say, for their own behavior without getting defensive. So let's look at an example of this. During a team meeting, you suggest an idea. A team member quickly retorts, "That won't work." You could get upset, you could just shut down, or you could ask a question. You could say, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Or why don't you think that will work?" Sorry, I'm getting my own tongue tied here. Um, so rather than assuming your team member is criticizing your idea, gather more information, like we talked about, right? Because you might obtain information that you didn't know when you were proposing your idea. But more importantly, it allows your team member to recognize, oh, wait a minute, maybe I need to explain more. I need to be accountable, right, for how I just said that or what I just said. It's an opportunity for them to explain their thought process, to explain their reasoning rather than them just getting defensive or you getting defensive. So it really goes both ways on this one. All right. So let me just pause there for a moment and check in. So, at this point, we've been discussing the value and the elements of non defensive questions. And so, before I jump into format, let me just see if there's any initial questions coming up from any of you. Go ahead and use the chat. I'm looking over. If you see me looking, I'm looking at my other screen here. Go ahead and ask if there's any questions now before we move on. Okay, I don't see anything yet, and we'll have more time at the end for questions too. I just wanted to check in with all of you. Okay, so I don't see anything yet. So let's keep going then. So when it comes to format, there are content questions and there are process questions. And so on the slide here, I've listed the different types. I've given some different types of content questions you might see and some different types of process questions. And I do want to take this opportunity, and Carrie's got some links to put in the chat. I did write back in January some blog posts on this topic, and I broke those blog posts into two because it was just a lot of information for one. So the first one really focuses on what we've been talking about so far, the value and the elements. The second one, part two, focuses more on what we're going to talk about next, the format. So Carrie's putting I see those links in the chat. Thank you. And I'll put those in my follow-up email. But let's take a couple examples from the second blog post, the part two of the blog post, where I share some examples of these formats. So as you can see there on the slide, the first one there is the who, what, when, where, how, and why. So let's just look at how that might play out. The purpose of this kind of a content question is to gather the details regarding a situation or regarding a person's reactions. So, let's just say you come home from a long day at work, at least back in pre-COVID when we were working away from home, but even if you're at home, right, you come out of your office space, your workspace, and you see that your children who have been home all day on spring break have stacks of dirty dishes piled up in the sink, right? Many of us are going to have a very initial natural reaction to that. So maybe we pause ourselves rather than getting into an argument. We pause ourselves and we say something else, something non-defensive, like, why did you decide not to do the dishes? Or what prevented you from doing the dishes? So rather than making it an initial automatic accusation, you're gathering more information. You're giving them a chance to give you some explanation or details, or maybe just rethink, yeah, maybe we don't really have a good reason. Maybe we should do the dishes, right? So you're allowing that space for some dialogue and some understanding. Another example, I'm just going down the list here. Let's just look at questions about quantity, right? Um, it's down there on the middle of the bulleted list there. 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one there. And this is the purpose of this one. And I do see some questions coming in, so I will get to those in just a moment. Let me just finish up on this, and we'll turn back to that. Um, The purpose of this kind of a question is to get clarification about words that describe amounts, percentages, degrees, right? It gets people to be a little bit more exact. Many of you may have heard someone say, well, everyone, or always, or most, using general terms like that. This gives them an opportunity to really get more accurate and specific and really rethink, well, is it really always, right? Is it really most? So you could ask something like, by always, what, do you mean blah, 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 right? Or can you help me understand what you mean by always? Or you could say, when you say all, do you mean X, right? So it neutralizes the situation, but you're also getting specific clarity on, like, how many are we really talking about here? Okay. And then before I go to the questions in the chat, let me just give you an example of a process question. So the second one here talks about questions about involuntary reactions. And I love this one because for those of you who have taken crucial conversations, it really is very similar to the mirroring approach, right? And what am I talking about there? Let's just say, basically what you're doing is you're following up, or you're asking clarifying questions based on something that you're observing, like a facial reaction or body language, or even a tone of voice, right? Something that's really not verbal per se. So, maybe you're with your friend and you ask your friend to go hiking and they say yes, but their face just looks pained by it. They look like distraught by the idea of having to go for a hike. So rather than just, ignoring it and saying, okay, great, let's go, you might ask about that. You might, gently ask about the involuntary reaction. So you're saying yes, but it looks like you don't look really happy about that. What's going on? Is there something else I need to know? Why did you frown or look pained, when you agreed to go hiking? Because then you might find out maybe they just didn't get a good night's sleep last night. They really want to please you, but they're really too tired to go hiking. Or maybe they're having, maybe something hurts or whatever the reason might be. But you're again opening up that space for dialogue. Okay, so we're almost to the end of the content. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go ahead and look at some of these questions coming in. Is there a risk of sounding passive aggressive? Sure. So thanks for asking that. So yes, I think a lot of it, again, it's going to be in your delivery, in your tone. Also, you have to know the other person in the relationship, right? So you're going to have to make some adjustments to make sure it does sound and come across sincerely and not passive aggressive. And if you're concerned about that, you could always state your intention up front. You know, I in no way am saying this to be sarcastic or passive aggressive. I truly am concerned, or I truly do want to ask for the purpose of finding out more, or for, stating your purpose to gather more information, or to make sure I'm not making an assumption or I'm not misreading a situation. So CJ, does that help answer that question before I move on?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then Marissa asks, how do power dynamics come into play? Yep, sometimes asking, did you mean that as your opinion or a fact to your boss, even in a genuine tone? Sure, could be interpreted as challenging or disrespectful. Again, yes, we're always having to and that's why you might not be able to do this on the fly. You might have to come back and revisit conversations after you've given it some thought, because you definitely do want to take into consideration the relationship, the power dynamics. And I'm not suggesting that you should do it because of the power dynamic, but again, thinking about how you ask the question. Maybe you wouldn't use those exact words, right? If you're afraid it's going to be perceived as challenging or disrespectful. Okay. So maybe you'd have to phrase it differently, or think of different word choice in addition to your delivery and your tone. And I'd be happy to talk more offline if you had a specific situation, to understand the facts of the situation, to think about, okay, how might you phrase that? How might you frame that question? Or maybe you're asking more of a clarifying question. Can you tell me more about that? I'm not sure what that means. Can you help me understand? Or, asking other questions rather than saying, did you mean that as your opinion or as a fact? Marissa, does that help?
It does. Thanks. Yeah, I'm really curious about the answer to Stephanie's question, actually.
Okay, good. We're scrolling down. We're getting there. Thank you. And thanks for just taking yourselves off mute so responsibly and just responding. It's much easier than using the chat. So Stephanie says, I'd be curious how communication style fits in. Ah, yes, direct versus indirect, as well as cultural norms. Yep. face values, face saving, for example, may not respond the same way to a direct conversation, maybe perceived as being more indirect by someone with less face saving cultural mindset, even though, per their communication style and cultural norms, that person may feel they've been very clear. So this is a whole other workshop, but yes, when you start getting into communication styles, direct versus indirect, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying to Marissa's question about, knowing your audience. It's the same kind of answer, right? So we all have different communication styles. And if any of you have taken any of organizational employee developments workshops using DISC or other tools, you know that we all show up differently. We all have our different kind of go-to styles. Some of us are more direct, some of us are more indirect, some of us are fast-paced, slower paced, some of us are more task-oriented or relationship-oriented. So if you have access to that, or if you know this person well enough to kind of build the gauge, what their communication style is, you can then adapt your style, right? Because in communication, to be an effective communicator, the onus is on us to adapt so that we can be heard by whoever it is we're communicating with. So to do that, it's helpful to know, is this person a direct or indirect communicator? Because you might have to change your approach slightly to accommodate that so that they can truly hear you, right? Without getting defensive, without pushing back, without digging in, or without shutting down. So that's kind of a whole other presentation. But yes, and that feeds right into cultural, like knowing cultural, understanding cultural norms. And if you have that information, you're definitely going to want to incorporate that. Unfortunately, we don't always have that information. So we're using our best judgment and our best guess based on what we know about the person, the culture they're coming from, how they communicate, how they show up in the workplace. So does that, I know that's not, doesn't probably give all the information you're looking for, but does that kind of help put you in the right direction, Stephanie?
It does. Thank you. And thank you, Kiersey, too, for the book recommendation. I appreciate the reminder that really for each of us stepping into our communication, right, to try to be as observant and responsive to that other person as we can be. And hopefully they're doing the same and we can meet somewhere in the middle. But yeah, it's another area of just personal interest for me of how all of that
Mhm.
together.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there is so much to that. So thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for sharing that live. There is so much to it, right? And so, but yeah, but all these factors, I mean, unfortunately, there's not like one way to do everything, right? There's not like a one approach all the time. We can take all these different tips and tools and strategies, but the more comprehensive we can make it and apply them, together, the more effective we're going to be. And so, yes, I see Kiersey referred you to the culture map. Excellent resource, excellent book. If you do know cultural background, that can really give you some guides on how that person may communicate, how they may make decisions, so that you can then adapt your style accordingly. Um, okay, so Marissa was following up on that. Another thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on. I think I hit everything on the chat for now. So I'm going to keep going. We're at 12:28. Gosh, these 30 minutes always go by so fast. Okay, so, but the good news is we're almost there. We're on the home stretch. So here are the resources I mentioned. And I'm really including this on the slide for those who will be watching the video on YouTube after the fact to see what resources we're talking about. And again, I'm going to provide all of these in the follow-up email. So no need to worry about screenshots or writing all of this down. And then before I move on to any final questions, here, of course, is how to contact us in the Ombuds office. I also strongly encourage you all to follow our blog and follow us on Twitter. We do now have a Twitter account. And just a heads up, we are going to take a little hiatus from our Lunch and Learn series. And we're going to be moving to 3 Lunch and Learns per semester starting in the fall, so starting in August. And I just want to thank anyone on the call who did take time. I had sent out a survey to past registrants, getting some input on future Lunch and Learns. And so anyone on the call who participated, thank you so much. We are taking all that into consideration as we kind of navigate and strategize what these look like going forward. So be sure to check our website for more information this summer. Okay, so that was all I had for my content that I was going to share. Anything else from all of you? And again, feel free to use the chat, questions, comments, um, people looking for other resources. Happy to take a few moments to answer that. And I also recognize it's 12:30. So if those of you who do need to hop off, thank you so much for being here. But I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes if there's any more questions. Okay, so I did get a private message, so I will not say the name. Okay, so thank you from this person. The comment is maybe to do a second lunch and learn on this topic. Okay, to really spend more time, sure. And I appreciate that. Like I said, we do try to make these short so people can, take something that they can start using and get back, but understand that there's definitely opportunity to share more and to take a deeper dive. So definitely we'll consider that. Thanks for the comment. So the next one is, it'd be helpful to have example situations to work through getting through tough issues. Do you have an example that you would like us to work through? Do you have a hypothetical or a scenario that you'd like to work through? We can also, of course, schedule one-on-one consultations in the ombuds office and work through as many as you'd like to practice using these skills. That's absolutely something we can offer you. So I'll leave it at that if you want to present something now or if you want to hold off. But yes, example situation. That's why I did try to give at least one scenario to kind of see an example of how this shows up. But you're right, more examples are helpful.
I don't have one off the top of my head, and all of the examples you used were very helpful. The problem is that it's not very clear cut. It doesn't end up being in your favor a lot of the times because the other person will come back with something that'll throw the situation again.
Yes. Oh, I hear you. I know this is not easy stuff, right? And if I've made it sound like this is easy or clear cut, yeah, no, that couldn't be farther from the truth. So, Anastasia, one thing we can do if you have time and are interested is you could schedule a consult because we do a lot of role playing in the ombuds office. So when people come in for consultations and we're talking through hypotheticals or real situations, we can talk through how to apply the skills, right, and implement them, but also to do some role playing to practice for exactly that point. What might someone say? You can't script it. That's the reality. You can't script it, but you can be prepared to have some questions in your back pocket so you're prepared to apply them, when needed. And don't forget, you can always take a timeout, right? If you're in a conversation and it's not going well or it's not headed in the direction that, and again, we're not trying to control the direction, but it's just, but it's not having a productive outcome or a constructive outcome. You can always pause and circle back. Take a step away. Now it's maybe not a great time to be talking about this or addressing this. Let's take a time out. Let people emotions subside, or just to kind of rethink how you want to approach it or how you want to frame it. And then I have it. Oh yeah, go ahead. And then I've got another private one, so I won't say the name. What are some strategies for keeping calm, right? If you don't like someone's response, that's a great question. So then the parentheses afterwards is like if they didn't take your question seriously, or if they escalate it as a reaction. Yeah, so I mean, breathing, right? Taking a breath, especially if you're hearing. I think the first part was really, it sounded like if you're hearing, like you've asked the question, and we talked about like sometimes you might not like the response. Being prepared for that, taking some deep breaths. If you really need to, again, taking a break, saying, wow, acknowledge it. Like, wow, thank you, right? Thank you for sharing that. And wow, that's really that's hard. That's that's really tough to hear. I may need to process that. I may need to digest that, right? You don't always have to do it all in one sitting. And if they don't take your questions seriously, maybe following up with another question, or maybe using the mirroring or the involuntary reaction type approach, so it doesn't feel like, you can say why. So you just said X, right? It's almost like using if you've taken crucial conversations, your state skills. Like, so I asked you this based on, your response was X. It doesn't feel like you're taking my questions seriously. Can you help me understand like what's going on for you right now, right? How are you feeling? is there more information that you need? Trying to use questions to keep the dialogue open and going, but also to get what you need. Like if they're not taking you seriously, you know, calling that out in a kind, direct, non-defensive way so they can maybe take a step back and be like, oh gosh, no, like I'm so sorry. No, it is taken seriously. I just had, maybe they just had a bad reaction to it, or, they let their emotions get in the way. Or maybe, they weren't taking it seriously. And then you could be like, well, you can reiterate, "No, I'm asking you this seriously. This actually is a real question for me, and I'm trying to understand." Again, stating your intention. So I don't know if that helps. And Kiersey's making some comments too. Yes. Kiersey's saying it helps to think about your long-term goals when you're trying to calm down. That's a great point. Stepping out of the immediate moment and thinking, what am I really trying to achieve here? What's my motive? Why am I even engaging in this conversation and asking these questions in the first place? That could help you see the big picture and not get caught up in the moment. So, okay, good. I'm glad that's helpful. Okay, I'm getting some comments here. All right, so I don't see any new ones coming in unless I missed some along the way. Carrie, any in the chat that I missed before we wrap it up?
Looks like you got most of them.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I am going to go ahead then and wrap it up for today. Again, thanks for those of you who are still here. So appreciate you being here. We do record these. It will be, the recording will be available on our website for anyone else who may have missed it, who you think could benefit. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you again soon. So thanks and take care. Have a good rest of your day.